Hi everyone, Joe Walden here. In our last video, we had a detailed look at the hardware that was needed for our chicken coop project. In this video, we are going to install the Raspberry Pi OS and configure a few of the OS settings. After we do that, we're going to configure VS Code so it can connect to the Raspberry Pi and we can start writing our JavaScript code. First, we're going to need a card reader. I'm using the Ugreen 4-in-1 USB card reader like the one shown above. This is a decent card reader and it works really well. At the time of this video, I saw it on Amazon for $11. Once you insert your SD card into the reader and verify that your PC can see the card, then we can go on to the next step. Now that the card reader is showing that your SD card is connected, we can jump over to the Raspberry Pi website and download the Raspberry Pi Imager. Once you're on the Raspberry Pi website, go to the menu and select Software. Now, scroll down to where you can see the information on how to download and install the Raspberry Pi Imager. They have download options for Windows, Mac OS, and Ubuntu. After you're done with the installation, go ahead and run the app. The startup screen should look like this. First, click Choose Device and select your Raspberry Pi model from the list. Since I have the Raspberry Pi 4 Model B, I'm going to select that version. Second, click Choose OS. Here you will be offered several selections. I prefer to work with the command line interface, so I'm going to scroll down to Raspberry Pi OS Other and select the Raspberry Pi OS Lite 64-bit version. The difference between the Lite version and the full version is that the Lite version does not have any user interface, which we don't need anyways. Let's think about it. This is a chicken coop controller. We have no need for all the added apps such as desktop environment, wallpapers, document or photo editors. That's why I just choose Lite 64-bit OS version. Oh, also, be sure you select the 64-bit OS version because this app will not run on any 32-bit OS version. Next, we will choose storage. Go ahead and select your SD card from the list. Now that we have all of our selections completed, we need to click Next. Here we are prompted to apply additional OS customization settings. Let's select Edit Settings. Now what you want to do here is you're going to select host name and you're going to set this to whatever you want to name it. I use RPI 4. Now we're going to set the username password and I put in the username of Joe and my super secret password. And we want to configure wireless LAN because remember we're not connected to any cable internet. We're going to just go wireless here. So our wireless is Walden Wi-Fi, and our super secret password is and the country is US. And the local settings here is I'm in Eastern time, so it's American New York. That's good there. Now we want to go over here to Services and be sure you click this because otherwise we won't be able to communicate to the Raspberry Pi. Other options here, you can set whatever you want there, but be sure you have SSH selected and that you have a name here. And remember this name because that's how we're going to log into this. Okay? And of course, make sure your Wi-Fi. Just do everything just like I did here and you'll be fine. Click Save. And then now we want to click Yes. And it's warning us that the SD card is going to be erased. Do you want to continue? We say yes. And this will take several minutes to finish. Now that the installation is finished, we can take the card out of the reader and insert it into our Raspberry Pi and power it on. Right now, we don't know the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. However, once we power on the Raspberry Pi, it will take a few minutes for the router to assign an IP address with DHCP. The router will also register the host name of your Raspberry Pi. In my case, we named the Raspberry Pi RPI4, and we can verify our network connection by opening a command prompt and typing ping RPI4 like this. Here we can see a successful ping. We see the IP address too, and now have verified that the Raspberry Pi is connected to the network. Well, let's see what an unsuccessful ping looks like. Let's ping RPI3, which we know does not exist. The response is, ping request could not find host RPI3. This tells us that RPI3 does not exist on the network. If you don't get a successful ping, you will need to troubleshoot the network issue. You won't be able to connect to the next step unless your Raspberry Pi is connected to the network. You'll need to download Visual Studio Code and follow the installation instructions from this site. Once you have VS Code installed, start the app and you'll be presented with this startup screen. This is the welcome screen. We want VS Code to connect to the Raspberry Pi, and there are two ways to open a remote window. There's a link here on the welcome screen, and there's also a little icon on the lower left. Clicking on either of these will allow you to open up a remote window. So let's select Connect To, and then the drop-down will open at the top. Here you want to select SSH. VS Code will now install the necessary extensions to connect to a remote window. Once they're installed, you'll be prompted to add a new SSH host. We can go over here to the extensions and just look and see what was installed. So these three items here are all part of the Remote Explorer to allow your VS Code to connect to the Raspberry Pi. So up here you'll see it says add a new tongue twister. You'll see here where it says add a new SSH host. That's what we want to do. We want to connect to the Raspberry Pi. And you remember this screen here? If you remember when we were installing the image to the SD card, we had to set the host name to RPI4 and also set the username and password. We're going to use these on this line here and just type in SSH Joe at RPI4 and then hit enter. Now it's going to ask you which configuration file you want to update, and I recommend you use this one here, the first one that comes up that's associated with your user account. Just click that. Okay, so now that all that's done, we want to come down here again and say connect to host RPI4, and the window's going to open up and it's going to have the connection to your Raspberry Pi, and it's warning you that, hey, do you want to continue? Yes. Enter the password that we put in from our Raspberry Pi imaging. You remember that? Remember your password. And I'm just going to close out the window behind there. Right now it's setting up the SSH host. Okay, so now we're in the Raspberry Pi, but we can't do anything because we don't have a folder in there. So let's open up a terminal here. And down here, we're going to make a directory called code. We're going to go into that directory. Now we're going to make a directory called Coop, which is going to be our Coop code is going to go in there. Now we need to go into that directory. Now that we're in that directory, we can start adding stuff, add our code and stuff. So let's come up here to File, and it's going to say Open a folder. Okay. So now we come up with this dialog up here, and we know we want to go to Code and then Coop. See? Now we're in the Coop folder. Click OK. Enter your password one more time. All right, so here, restricted mode is intended for safe code browsing. We want to turn that off. So let's click Manage, and we want to say Trust. All right, Trust Parent and Trust. Let's trust the parent. So now that's done, all the files in here are now trusted by VS Code, or we're allowing VS Code to be accepted. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to install an extension called ESLint. This is it right here. We're just going to click Install. And you can see here ESLint is installed, but it's installed in the Raspberry Pi as a extension. This is local on your machine, these extensions here, and this is on the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so next we have to do a couple little more housekeeping things. Okay, so let's drop back to our folder here. We want to open up the terminal. And the first thing we want to do is install NVM. And to do that, we use this statement right here. The next thing we want to do is install Node. And to install Node, we use NVM here with this command. --LTS means the latest safe version. Oh, I goofed here. You know what you have to do? You have to close the window, close your terminal, reopen it, and then go and do NVM install. Okay, now that's done. Then the next thing we have to do is install NodeMon. And again, this is my preferences here. If you want to make sure everything works like it's supposed to, and just follow what I'm doing, but you can modify that if you're more adept at setting these things up. So we're going to install NodeMon here with this command. Okay, and here we're getting a prompt here that there's an update, so we'll go ahead and copy that and paste it down here and run it. Okay, and then now what I want to do is just type in this to make sure we have the right versions and everything is running. So this gives us the version of Node, NPM, and NodeMon. Okay, so we know all of that's installed, right? Before we go any further, let's make sure our Raspberry Pi is updated. Okay, let's do this npm init because we want to initialize the node in here. So we'll just select npm init. Package name, it's going to prompt you for a couple questions here. Coop is the package name, that's fine. We'll just hit enter. And we don't want index.js, we want server.js. Because our entry point is, sometimes people put app.js or whatever, but because this is the server-side code, we want it to, I just say, let's call it server.js. Who cares? You can name it whatever you want. Okay, so that's done. And if you look up here in package.json, this is our setup here, and the main is server.js. Now here's where you can manually go in and just edit this to whatever you want, you know, if you wanted to, okay? Okay, so the next thing I want to install is ESLint, and you use this command here. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to initialize ESLint, and so we use this command here. Click yes. Now these are the settings that I use here. I like to check for the proper syntax to find any errors and problems, and enforce a code style. Wanted to try to use prettier for code formatting, but it seems like it's just hard to set up with ESLint and is not dependable, or I couldn't figure it out. It's beyond my skill level. But if you just use ESLint to enforce a code style, it seems to work pretty good. So I just do this one here. Then I want to go down here and I want to select CommonJS, because that's what I'm going to use. And I'm not using React or Vue, so select none of these. And do we use TypeScript? Nope, we do not. And I put an A here to select both browser and the node scripting. And I want to select a popular style. So let's select use popular style. And I go down here and I use standard. What format do you want your config file to be in? I just stick with JavaScript. We got to install these dependencies. So just click yes, use npm because that's what we have installed. Okay, so you can see now the package.json shows that we've installed these dependencies and everything. So we're almost ready to go. Just hold on, one more thing. We want to add one more little thing here. Let's look at our ESLintric RC. This is okay. This shows what we're checking for. And then let's go up here to the VS Code folder and open up settings. And we want to make sure that we add this to the file. Okay? And I think that's where we want to be now. So at this point, we're going to get into some code writing. So I don't want to do that yet. I want to do that on the next video. So let's just close out here. This is our setup for here. We're going to test it out on the next video and everything. But this is just how to get started and allow you to have a good IDE for writing your code. Okay? We'll look forward to seeing you on the next video. Thanks for watching.